the third sample from my new book. The new book is called Mortality and the Human Imagination. It is a collection of essays. And I've taken three what I think are representative samples, recorded them and put them up on my webpage, which is zengalapa.net/publications. You can find all three of the samples there, plus a convenient link through to Amazon should you decide to purchase a copy of your very own. This particular sample is called A Question is a Blessing. And the sample, the section I've chosen, talks about the impetus for writing, or the inspiration, or how inspiration moves through elements of craft to get to the final product, and along the way some discussions of how mistakes play into the process, enhancing it or derailing it, either are equally valid and likely outcomes. So I hope you enjoy it. Again, all three samples are available on zengalapa.net/publications. And thank you very much for taking the time to listen to this. I am delighted to have finished these essays. They had been on my desk for many years as notes and artifacts that needed to be pulled together. So please let me know if you have any questions, or if you have any comments, if you liked the book, if you hated it. I just want to hear from you. So thanks very much. Heidegger calls every inquiry a seeking. Quote, every seeking gets guided by what is sought, unquote. Before we get to what is being sought, there are some characteristics of an inquiry that Heidegger wants to be established and understood. Heidegger wants to do this because he is working through the introduction of being and time to explain that the human being, what he calls Dasein, is distinct precisely because it inquires into its own being. An inquiry, always capitalized, has something that is asked about. An inquiry has a mode of interrogation, and an inquiry has something that is found. Quote, furthermore, in what is asked about there lies also that which is to be found out by the asking. This is what is really intended. With this, the inquiry reaches its goal, unquote. The inquiry, quote, lays bare, unquote, Heidegger's words. The inquiry exposes some fundamental information. I once said that a question is a blessing. I said that in front of a classroom of university art students. I had played some section of the Scratch Pieces, which are long electronic synthesis music compositions from the time when I first developed techniques to use visual material to generate sound. After 10 minutes listening to this, one of the students asked why I would do this. It is a serious question. Why? The Scratch Pieces use static noise filtered into long-form constructs. They require a shift in the definition of music. This was the right classroom. My friend teaches a seminar on space arts, art about in, from, or for space, outer, inner. It was a free-form discussion leading up to when I turned on the speakers. The aesthetics of the Scratch Pieces are unrelenting, pushing towards unbearable. The comment required an honest answer. Why would I write sound like that? Why would I write at all? Why? I was recuperating from the third and so far last surgical intervention addressing my diagnosis of neurofibromatosis 2. I'd been on leave from my job for 10 weeks, and my friend had asked me to get dressed and visit his class. I had spent the first 5 weeks alternately sweating from my scalp or frozen under a blanket in a 4-hour cycle dictated by regular oral consumption of opioid pain medication. The second 5 weeks, I had started to play through at the piano sections of the Messiaen Quartet for the end of time. Here's what I said in response to the question, why write? A question, I said, is a blessing. The greatest gift anyone can be given is to have a question, not a question like, is anyone listening, or does anyone like this? A good question precipitates from the unknown or the unremembered or the unrealized and demands an accretion of meaning over time. A question becomes like a companion, always there to react. Questions, the really good ones, don't have an answer. What they have are assignments, and an assignment does have a potential answer. The question is an impulse that generates intimations. Maybe it all starts with a feeling. What is love given and received? Why do things last so little? Can you sing the blues? Intimations become problems, problems beget assignments, and assignments usually require the honing of a craft to complete a specific task. Heidegger says that the question must be restated, and I quote him again. Laying the foundation, as we have described it, is rather a productive logic, in the sense that it leaps ahead, as it were, into some area of being, discloses it for the first time in the constitution of its being, and, after then arriving at the structure with it, makes then available to the positive sciences as transparent assignments for their inquiry. End quote. This question Heidegger pushes is the understanding of being, which is a big question. My question isn't like that. And now that I've put the spotlight onto writing it down, I find myself unable. My question is, why does that shape feel this way and not that? And that's about it. My question is not, what is the nature of the imagination? That's a problem which has generated dozens of assignments. My question isn't, what is the color of death? That's an intimation and something I've tried to pull into some kind of form. Why does this shape of something which is not there feel like a certain way? This is my interpretation of synesthesia. The tools I have to explore this question are the tools of music composition, the arrangement of sound. Sometimes I get an assignment to write a piece of music for the piano. Every piece I've ever written for the piano is trying to figure out the same problem, because that question is a gesture. I want to write a piece of music where the hands are very far apart, and then the hands are very close together. While they are far apart, they play multiple syncopated lines against each other, and when they are close together, they play clusters of chords. When the hands are far apart, play loudly. When they are close together, play softly. Take each of these written statements and reverse them. It is astonishing how many variations this can bring, and how often I fail to realize that deliberate, easily stated intention. I may get distracted, I may make a mistake and prefer that outcome for the moment. I may lose my grip on what's happening and find my craft insufficient. A failure to complete the assignment may generate another piece, even a very good piece, but it is an inauthentic piece which does not progress the question. A question is a great thing, a great gift. It prevents dishonor, the most severe dishonor, which is waffling. A question is binary. Did you stare down the abyss and continue forward? Did I keep my wits about me? Often, when I write, it is writing to try and figure out what the hell that was, where that was some fleeting and off-slight apperception. Here's how I would explain. You get an impulse, a sense of something. Then you're trying to frame a question, and that's difficult because an impulse is notoriously fragile in understanding. That's why a question is such a blessing for the impulse to successfully pass from the gesture to the verb. You dig? A question, a gesture, is a container of the potential. A verb is a limiter, a constraint, something glorious, but something that may only happen once a lifetime. Then, each time you come back to that same question, it's starting over, trying to figure out how best to answer. The excavation of an impulse is a consideration of mortality with each blank page. A question formed around an impulse is a blessing to carry through the day. Craft and artifice are required to continue. Heidegger says that all ontology, all questions, remain, quote, blind and perverted, unquote, if it doesn't, quote, first adequately clarify the meaning of being, unquote. For all that Heidegger has the reputation of fearsome difficulty, his text often resolves to a few straightforward terms. The question of being, the work which will consume hundreds of dense pages of newly coined German grammar, that question of being is to lay bare the thing itself. There you go, Heidegger, distilled. Phenomenology isn't much more than that either. The phenomenon part is for the thing to show itself in itself authentically. At the same time, logos, which is the ology part of phenomenology, is a discourse that lets the phenomena appear. So now statements like this one make sense. Quote, to let that which shows itself be seen for itself in the very way in which it shows itself from itself. Unquote.